Hello once again, I'm Extra Life, wishing you a very happy 909 day. That's right, it's September 9th, which is the day of the year that we celebrate some very classic Japanese drum machines from the 1980s, which is still making many great records today. And this year I was inspired to give you my own take on it. So I've built what I call ER-99, which is a free, playable, web-based drum machine that you can fire up in your browser and play with right now. So let's take a look at it. On the front panel, you will see a fairly familiar looking control set, and up here at the top you've got these labels for all of the channels, and you can click on them to hear the notes. On these where there's two, you can click on the left or right side to trigger either one. And these are being played back in real time using virtual analog synthesis with oscillators and filters. So all of these drums here on the left are actually modeled on the original circuits, more or less, in the analog version. And then over here on the right, we have a couple of sampled sounds for the cymbals. And in fact, in the original drum machine, that's how it was done as well. Down below that, we have controls for each of these that you can adjust by clicking and dragging, or by scrolling with your mouse wheel. We can also play each of these instruments by pushing the numeric buttons on the keyboard, or over here on the numpad if you've got one on a larger size keyboard. Down below that, we have a very traditional XOX style sequencer with 16 steps in a grid that you can program, and you can extend that up to 64 steps using these bars controls. But if we just program in a basic beat down here on all of the quarter notes, so that's 1, 5, 9, and 13 on our bass drum, and we press start, we'll hear that 4 on the floor rhythm. Maybe we'll add some toms here. Get some claps going on the offbeats. And now we can start to play with some of these sounds and see how we change them. So as you can see, it's very easy to dial in a quick groovy type of sequence and then start playing with the sound. I spent many hours already dialing in some funky sounds for you. And down below the main interface here, if you scroll down, you can access some of those by clicking on the presets here or saving some of your own. So let's just pull up our classic electro sequence, and maybe we'll play that on the Junglist sound preset and hear how that sounds. Yeah, very 80s. What about something a little dirtier? Yeah, now that's some electro sound. And up here we can change the tempo, as well as the amount of swing applied to the sequence. In the sequencer interface, there's actually two different types of steps you can add. So you can add accents as well as regular steps. So you can see here, if I add a step and then click it again, it lights up a little bit brighter. That means that it's an accented note. And the level at which all of the accents are louder than the rest of the notes is controlled by the accent knob here. So you can make them really emphasized or pull them down and make it a little bit more subtle. It's really nice to use on hi-hats or on variations for the kick drum. Additionally, we've got some features that weren't included in the original 80s drum machine, like this compressor, and of course a randomization features here so that we can add just randomized notes and see what we get out of the sequence. And to change the length, we simply press the length button, say how many bars we want it to be, and now we're editing that bar, and we can adjust it so that we get kind of a slightly less repetitive sequence, or make it wildly different and make a full 4-bar set. In addition to this, we also have Midi Input up here. If you press the Midi Input button, your browser might ask you for permission to access the MIDI port the first time you use it. And you can use either a hardware MIDI controller to play the notes or a loopback port to sequence them using an external sequencer. So I'll connect this to Ableton using a port that's a virtual port created with Loop MIDI. On OS X, you can just use virtual MIDI cables. And then I'll pull up Ableton here. And now we're grooving along. We can also sequence the drums using MIDI notes from Ableton. So we might pull up a drum sequence and play it back. And now we can tweak this in real time while Ableton is controlling it. Just a quick word about latency. So I've got my track delays here, which is like track delay compensation essentially in Ableton pulled up, which you can toggle with this little D button over on the right side of the screen. And for getting all of this in sync today, because it's a little bit different every time you open the browser, depending what browser you're using, JavaScript threading is not super predictable. But today I have this at about minus 35, minus 45 milliseconds for my audio channels, and then the MIDI channel is slower to get over to the web browser, so I have it at minus 125 milliseconds. And that's so that it syncs up with the MIDI clock that controls the sequencer here. If you don't want to use the sequencer in the ER-99, you just want to program everything in Ableton, then you can probably leave all of your audio channels at 0, and then just give the MIDI signal that you're sending to the ER-99 a little bit of negative latency, so like minus 80 milliseconds, and it should get pretty close to in sync, and that way you only have to adjust one channel. So there you go. That is a quick look at the ER-99 programmable drum machine. Head over to extralifeinstruments.com/ER-99 to play it in your browser right now. Well, I think that about does it for today. I had a ton of fun building this drum machine. It was very educational as well as a lot of fun to play with as soon as I started getting some of the pieces working. So thank you very much for watching. Happy 909 day to you wherever you are. Practice and enjoy. I'll see you next time.